I want to put you on blast. Look at your
Okay.
face. Look at your face.
Okay, all right.
Look
I'm
at your
listening.
face.
We spoke about this previously, like during like the lockdowns and stuff like that. You got to adapt. Adapt or
Yeah.
die. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So
If you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. So I took that and thought, if I know my competition and I know what I offer in comparison to my competition, how can I be better than them?
but it's weird because so many people love this book.
Welcome back to the Power of Pages. I go by Ty.
Yes, Mr. Fly.
And before we get started on this review, I want to big up you, our new subscribers. We've recently had an influx of new subscribers. So big up to all of you. It's amazing that you're following a podcast or book review channel like this. You're in for some gems.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go.
Big up
month,
yourself. Big up yourself.
Yeah, big up. This month, The Art of War. Mr. Fly picked this book this month.
Yes.
Firstly, why did you pick it?
I picked it because it's a book I've had for a long time.
Yeah.
I started reading it a few years ago. I never actually finished it at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a book. It's quite a well-renowned book, well-known book, international bestseller, famous book. So just interested, wanted to see what the hype's about.
Yeah.
It's the best I could put it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to give a bit of an overview of the book to begin with?
I mean, the way I interpreted the book, like I said, I hadn't read it before. I started reading it. And it gets a lot of people really like this book. I put it up on my social media and stuff, and I got a lot of like comments or replies of people that have read it. But it's like a book about its principles of war, is what I would say. I didn't know before reading it. I didn't know whether it was like a metaphorical war or whether it was like literal war.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu, I haven't done any research on him, but I'm assuming after reading it, I think it's actually like literal, but it can be but I didn't really. I didn't apply it. But it's morals and principles that can be applied in life, in business, in whatever. So in sport, what did you think?
Yeah, exactly the same. I thought in The Art of War, it would have been, metaphorical. It would have given, more real life examples, but it's literally about the art of war in real life examples, how soldiers should go to war, what battlefields they should, how they should behave in war to get the best advantage, which you can take snippets out and apply it to life situations, but only if you look deep enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I saw it more like principles of leadership. Is, to be fair, that was the main kind of core thing that I took from it. Like, to be a good leader, good general, whatever. That's kind of the way I looked at it. I thought, okay, this obviously I'm not going to war anytime soon, but hopefully not anyway. But I am a leader, so it's something that it's like, we need to. It helps us to become a better leader, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Were there any key takeaways that you thought you took from this book?
Quite a few. There was a lot of, the chapters. There was a lot of chapters. I think one of I did like the chapter about, I think it was chapter 3, attack by stratagem or strategy. I don't know how you had it in your book. It might be a bit different, but yeah, there was like simple things. He will win who knows when to fight and when to retreat. It's quite simple, straightforward. I thought this kind of brought me back to a lot about boxing and about the kind of tactics on if you're playing sport and stuff like that, like I said before. And even, so that was something that, kind of makes sense. Like, when to step forward, sometimes when to speak, when not to speak. Like I said, I didn't necessarily take it as literal as it was written, but, what about yourself?
Yeah, similar things. I think the things that I took, I had to dig deep to take them. So it was like whoever's first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second and has to hasten to the battle. I think it's hasten to the battle will arrive exhausted. So essentially, the early bird catches the worm. Like, get there first in situations. Whether that's business, whether that's life, if you're there ahead of the game in first position, you're in a better position to assess what's going on, etc. And that's kind of what it's saying. In a war field, if you get to the battlefield first, you can get there, set up, get prepared, and then when the enemy comes, you can attack. Just like, you know, going to a studio to film a podcast early, you get there early, you set up, then you can prepare. Then when the guest comes, you can you can deliver the best session possible. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's even, you know, say you're a football coach, go in there early, setting up the cones, making sure that you're prepared, and then when your coachees come, you can deliver a great session. So little things like that I took from the book, but I had to really dive in to get those. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the book was very literal. In fact, one of the things that I didn't like about the book was there was no real story. It felt like just bullet point. It was kind of, you know, a story of, you know, going to war, but it was kind of just like this bullet point, this bullet point, this bullet point.
I think that's similar to like As a Man Thinketh, isn't it, in that sense? Because it did remind me of that. Like, excuse me. So it was like, okay, it's just point 1, point 2, but it's principles and values and whatnot. You know, going back to the one you just mentioned, like, it's kind of difference between being reactive and proactive. Do you know what I mean? So obviously, if you use the war scenario, if you get to the battle, if you've got the enemy approaching you, you've got the opportunity to kind of set things how you want to set, or have the tactics set out already, versus going there and reacting to what's been set out for you when you're approaching. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was quite cool as well. You know, staying back of that one. Again, it goes to preparation. So like on these 5 essentials for victory, I'll read through all of them actually. So number 1, he will win who knows when to fight and when to retreat. I already read that one. Number 2, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. Number 3, he will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout the ranks. Number 4, he will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared, which we kind of just spoke about. And number 5, he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by sovereign. So there's a lot in there, you know, and again, I think they can all be applied to other scenarios and other situations. Definitely, you know.
Yeah, I think the key thing you said earlier is leadership. They can be taken in and put into leadership, right? It said, I think point 3 was about the spirit of the army. You know, if you've got a business or people around you, or even colleagues, you know, the spirit of the people around you can uplift you and propel you to do well in whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, that same scenario in war where you want, you know, a well-spirited soldiers, you also want well-spirited friends, family, colleagues, employees if you've got a business. So yeah, you can take things. One of the things that I did like actually about the leaders, or taking it out of leaders, it was 5 dangerous faults which affect a general. So it was 5 things that essentially make you a bad leader or a bad general, which can apply to you as an individual, and I think in all aspects of life. And they were recklessness. So yeah, not being too reckless in the art of war, not just going out there being reckless, getting everyone killed, but that can be applied to life. You don't want to be reckless with any kind of decision making that you're making. Cowardice, you know, you don't want to be scared. You want to be scared is okay, but you don't want to be a coward. You want to be, you know, brave and confident, and that's again applicable to all aspects of life. Hasty temper. So again, you want to be able to control your temper. You don't want to get boiled up too quickly. Again, applicable to all aspects of life. Delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame. So yeah, you don't want to have your honor impacted or easily impacted, or feel like it's easily impacted. And again, it kind of comes down to pride. You don't want to be too proud, and over solicitude. for his men, which is sensitive to shame. So yeah, I'm not really sure on that one, but
That was a mixture. No, that one, because I've got it.
okay.
Over solitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that's what, exposes him to worry and trouble. So that's like if you're kind of panicking too much or worrying too much about your, your soldiers or your soldiers and stuff like that. So, and then you start to worry and trouble, then your mind's not necessarily on, on the task at hand.
Yeah. So all of those things can be applied to everyday life. Not overly worrying, not being too proud, not having a crazy temper, not being a coward, and not being reckless. They're all great things that can be applied to us as individuals.
It was like, I was one of the chapters that got me number 10. It was terrain, and it spoke about. It's with this one. I got like, again, when you dig a bit deeper, I got like relationships. Then it kind of got me thinking about parenting or mentoring or stuff like that, like stuff that we do. So it was like, regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand with you even unto the death. That was quite, again, leadership, but then also about relationships, right? Because it's not all, if you regard them as your children, obviously sometimes you've got to be fair, firm, you've got to be different. It's not just all one, it's not one size fits all, one strategy kind of does the whole thing. Then the next one, number 26 in that chapter. If, however, you are indulgent but unable to make your authority felt, kind-hearted but unable to enforce your commands, and incapable, moreover, of quelling disorder, then your soldiers must be likened to spoiled children, and they are useless for any practical purpose. So, again, going back to leadership, going back to those relationships that you have with people, it definitely made me think about my relationships with young people and people around me that are, in different situations. So it's like, yes, you've got to kind of be, yes, you can regard them as children, or can have that kind of care for them, but at the same time, you don't want to spoil them. You want them to, you want them to be able to have a purpose, to have some use. In this regard, it talks about usefulness for war, but really, from what we do and what we're trying to do is like a usefulness to be productive in society, productive lives, X, Y, Z. So yeah, I mean, look, the book, that's kind of it. It's kind of like bar for bar for bar for bar, like that, like the bullet points. But there's no real story going through it. It would be, but I know, like I said, it's quite well regarded. Did you apply any of this to like anything that you're currently doing or anything kind of going on with you?
I didn't apply it to anything currently. There's nothing that I could say that I took and thought, yeah, cool, I'm going to apply that to my life. But there were good reminders. So like I said, about those 5 key aspects of not being reckless, etc. Yeah. And yeah, there were no real things that I would say, yes, I'm going to use that. There were key points that were applicable to life. So for example, if in training soldiers, commands are habitually enforced, the army will be well disciplined. If not, its discipline will be bad. So again, going back to leadership and working with a team, enforcing good routines and good habits that allow people to thrive rather than having things reckless where people are just all over the place. And so maybe that did help apply to, some of the people that work for me, having clearer systems, and made me think, actually, I need to make sure that these systems are exactly one way so that people know this is exactly the plan. There's no looseness about it. So yeah, potentially I could apply that, but the book doesn't tell you that, right? You have to take from the book what you can.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, sometimes you've got to dig a little deeper. Do you know what I mean? It's good to provoke that thought and to think, okay, how does this actually apply? Does it apply? All right, it says one thing, but how can I, what is it really saying beneath the surface? Take a philosophical approach to things like that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. And that's what I think was for me, it was like, okay, when you read it, you have to, otherwise, because you could just literally read it and you won't really take it in.
Yeah.
Just read it, but then you have to kind of read it and kind of deep it and think on it a little bit and then see, okay, this is what it's talking about, how else can I apply it, which kind of makes it then everyone I think might have their own individual experience of the book in that sense,
Yeah.
because it's not like telling you, there's not a character, there's no kind of storyline thread that's going through the whole book. So
Yeah.
that's maybe a positive.
Yeah. This is a book that I feel that if you read it, you have to take from it. It's not a book. I wouldn't call it a giving book, a book that gives you gems, gives you diamonds. It's a book that can incite thinking and encourage you to apply those scenarios to your life. But you have to do that. The book doesn't encourage that. So yeah. I mean, who would you say this book is for?
I would say, I mean, judging by the people, when I did post it, and people that very tenacious people were the ones that kind of responded and like, yeah, I've got that book, like, I love that book. The kind of personality of the people is like, right, these people are definitely like, they're tenacious, they're go-getters. Like, I think, who would I recommend this book to? I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to a young person, because I think, like you said, it's not kind of like connect the dots sort of thing. It's not like an easy read in that sense. I know we'll get to that later on, but it's someone who kind of has that thoughtfulness, who's going to read something and then sit back and deep what they're thinking about and deep what they're reading. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think someone who's in business already, to answer your question, I don't think I would necessarily give it to someone who's starting out, because they may not have, but then again, I'd give it to, like, because this made me think a lot about boxing. And it's something that I would, like one of my favorite chapter 6, The Enemy on the March. I was like, Red, this kind of reminds me a lot about boxing and about sport, but about everything. But for me, it kind of just got into like competing. And I'll read some of them. So it was like, water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground in which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he's facing. So, we're talking about tactics. You know what I mean? So, regardless of, so it's just, water is shapeless. And I'm pretty sure maybe Bruce Lee has quite a famous quote about water as well. Possibly his quote was inspired by this or vice versa. I don't know the timelines. But, you've got to kind of, water shapes its terrain that it's going across. And you've got to kind of, so if in a boxing situation, if someone has this particular strategy, you might think, or this particular fighting style, you might say, okay, what's the best way to counteract that fighting style? Similar if, you're pitching someone like the film that came to mind, that Michael Jordan film that's out on Netflix. And when they were talking, basically they're gonna go and see, Michael Jordan's gonna go and see Adidas and all these other people before he ended up with Nike. And then his mum asked the person from Nike, who do you think we should go with? And he was very aware of how they were gonna pitch Michael Jordan. So he was like, well, when you go to Adidas, this is what's gonna happen. When you go to, I don't remember who I can't remember, Converse or whoever it was. Yeah, whatever it was, they're gonna pitch like this. So and so I think him being aware of how they were gonna pitch allowed him to think, well, I'm gonna pitch this way because of his awareness of the opposition. And obviously eventually they got the deal. So, this was one example. But yeah, if you take it back to like a boxing scenario, you need to kind of know what's the best way to approach that threat. Which was, that was one thing. Then another one, so it's a follow on from that one. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare, there are no constant conditions. I think that's completely self-explanatory. But again, and then the third and final one, he who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain. So then we go into leadership. So about modification and tactics. And I think, we spoke about this previously, like during like the lockdowns and stuff like that. You got to adapt, adapt or die, stuff like that. So that was maybe my favorite part of the book. I was like, okay, that part kind of really resonated with me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, there were like some points that you could take, like you said, the bars. I think, was it The Richest Man in Babylon, was it?
Yeah,
where we had some bars. And this book had some bars, but again, you had to analyze it, sit back and think, actually, how can I apply that to my life in whatever scenario? And one of the things that I wrote down here, if you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. So I took that and thought, if I know my competition and I know what I offer in comparison to my competition, how can I be better than them? How can I, how can I beat them based on my skill set? and compare it to their skill set. So things like that were applicable to my my life. That seems like my favorite word today, applicable.
It's the word of the day. Word of the day.
word of the book review. Was there any other key points that you thought, okay, this book, yeah?
I mean, not really. For me, like I said, that was like, you know, there was a few others, you know, to talk about energy. The chapters were quite short, which was a good thing as well. But you know, there was a few others that I highlighted, like on chapter 5 about energy. In battle, there are not more than 2 methods of attack: the direct and indirect. Yet these two in combination give rise to endless series of maneuvers. So it's just, you know, I think it's just about your approach, you know, to different things. Like, it's just about your approach to things. It's quite, have an open mind. You know, we're trying to go for victory at the end of the day, you know, whether that be victory in war, whether that be victory in business, personal life, whatever. Do you know what I mean? So sport, whatever, relationship. So it's there's something there for everyone. But I think what will happen is you'll read it and you're gonna apply it to your own individual. You can't just take it at face value, I don't think. I think you've got to kind of like look at it and read it, and whatever is more applicable to you will jump out to you.
Yeah. Jeez. I mean, I think for me, there wasn't anything else that I wrote down because this book was it was quite short. So it's actually like, what, 70 pages?
60 pages, yeah. 68.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't long at all. In fact, I read 35 pages, I believe, at the start of the month. And then I thought, actually, this is a book that I need to actually analyze each section and like think about when I read it. So I actually put it down. I thought, I'm going to read it closer towards the book review, towards the end of the month, because it was quick. So I did it, you know, I finished it, you know, a few days ago, because it's such a short book. But there wasn't really much. There wasn't really much more to take from it.
No, I agree with you. It's quite short. Obviously, a short book anyway, so there's not that much. But you know, I agree with you. There wasn't much besides what I've got other notes here. But if you know, if you're watching this, you know, and it's kind of tickled your fancy, then yes, obviously indications you should buy the book.
Yeah, and I want to. I mean, we can move on, man. We can move on because there's not much to talk about really with this book. But before we do that, I want to put you on blast. Look at your face. Look at your face.
Okay, all right. I'm listening. I'm here for it.
I used the wrong vocabulary. you look worried.
I'm just please proceed.
This book. So I'll give some context. Yeah. Normally in the mornings. Yeah. So I read in the mornings. Yeah. And reading in the morning really helps me to set up my day. I feel like when I wake up, you know, I read my book. If it's a good book, I enjoy it, and then I go and start my day, do whatever I have to do in the day. This is what the third short book you picked. It must be the third one. That's got to be less than 100 pages, and also, I didn't like it, man. I didn't like it. I'm gonna put it out there. I didn't like it, man. I did not like this.
Wait, well, save that for the recommend. What's it from the scoring part, man? You didn't like it.
I'm not giving away my score yet, but
yeah.
Actually, let me not say I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy reading it.
Okay,
that's probably a better way to put it, because there were things that I took from it, and I could apply, and I could see, okay, cool, good point. But I didn't enjoy reading it. It didn't set up my mornings the way I wanted it to.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, because it's kind of like the tone of the book is like it's quite negative. Is negative the word? Maybe it's like about enemies and war and, you know, sort of. So I get what you're saying, and I think in hindsight, because like I said, I've had this book for a while. Like I think I bought it when I was at uni, and I didn't finish it. So it's one of my old books that I had, and I was like, you know, obviously where we're doing this every month, I thought, well, it's only a matter of, I might as well read it, like, you know, because it's there. But I guess the one, and same with the book before. These are just old books that I've had that I haven't read. But the reason, that's mostly why I didn't finish reading it, because I don't think
that is why you didn't.
No, because I don't. To be real with you, because even when I read this, I struggled to finish it. and I don't think I would have finished it if we weren't doing this book review. To be 100% real,
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so because then I was like, when I was reading, I was like, okay, this is mostly why I stopped. But it's weird because so many people love this book. I don't know. Did you get the same response? Like, are you aware of that?
I mean, I haven't actually spoken to anyone about this book in particular. So I don't know.
This book. People love this book, bruv. Like, you know. So
Yeah.
it's interesting because I'm there thinking, am I missing something? You know what I'm saying? Like, I like it. I don't love it. And I like I said, I didn't finish it before, and it's like, okay, this is why I didn't finish it. But I get what you're saying. So you basically, next book, you want an encyclopedia. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's what you're saying. Yeah, you want an encyclopedia. I got a book here that's so thick here that I don't even like.
I just want some stories. You know.
Yeah. But you know what? Yeah, listen though, T. Yeah, like,
but
you need to. These are books. You can't.
Yeah.
You got to read things you don't like sometimes. I mean,
100%.
And even with this as well, like, you've got to. Sometimes some books, it's not all going to be there open. I'm saying this to you and to myself, so it's not going to be there. You've got to dig beneath the surface a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You might. I doubt we'll read this book again, but you know, sometimes like with a film, you watch it the first time, you don't really get nothing from it, and you watch it again, you're like, right, actually, okay, that links up to this and that. So,
and
I hear you.
And I don't regret reading this. I don't regret this being picked. You know, like I said, there were some things that I thought, you know, made me think temporarily about life or business or whatever. So there were still things that got my brain ticking. So that was fine. But yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. That's it. I just didn't enjoy it, man. So let's just go straight on to our difficulty rating with it.
Yeah.
You go first. How difficult was this book?
Difficulty rating, I'll give it like a 2.5 because I think because of the style of writing, people might like struggle. Like I said, I struggled to kind of finish it. So yeah, but I don't think some people 2.5.
Yeah. Okay. See, it's interesting because this book isn't a difficult book to read. You know, it's got very short sentences. It's like we said, we've got the bullet points. It's only 70 pages long, but it's difficult to read. So I mean, it's not difficult in terms of just reading the pages. It's very easy language. Anyway, I say all that to say I'm going to give it a 1.5. It wasn't crazy difficult. If I finished it in like 3 days.
Yeah.
So,
but difficulty isn't always defined by like the length of the book. Do you know what I mean?
No. Yeah, it's not defined by the length of the book, but I found it easy to read, but just not easy to enjoy.
Yeah, but okay.
So yeah. So star rating. I mean, you already got my rough take. You don't have my score. What are you going for with The Art of War?
Of War, star rating, I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
Because I think there 2. I was at one point I was flirting with the idea of a 2.5 or a 3, but realistically, I'll give it a 2 personally. I mean, like I said, it's a very well. I'm quite surprised that I didn't. You know, like when everyone's like, "Oh, this book," I was kind of waiting for that moment, like for it to be, you know. But nah, I'll give it a 2.
Yeah, and for me, this is gonna be, you know, I'm sorry, Sun Tzu. I'm sorry, but I'm giving this a 1. Yeah, I'm giving this one a 1. This is the lowest ranking.
That's your lowest ever score, I swear.
My lowest ever score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't you like it? Why? Like, why? What was it exactly that you didn't like? Like, exactly.
It was the fact that it was just bullet point. The book was just points. But
as a man thinketh was like that also.
Yeah, but it had a little bit more.
So it's not just that then, is it?
Yeah, okay. And also it didn't make me think as much as a man thinketh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was about war. That's
cool.
Another thing. As a Man Thinketh is a kind of about life, you know.
Yeah.
This was literally about going to war.
Yeah.
Something that I'm not interested in. Hopefully I never have to experience going to war and never have to think about the tactics and methods, but it was literally about going to war, which I don't find interesting. So yeah, 1. Let's go straight on. Next month's book.
Tyler.
Next month's book, we've got a longer read. Now, this book is called The Automatic Customer, Creating a Subscription Business in Any Industry. And I'm not gonna tell you who recommended it yet. I'll save that for when we go on to the next month, when we review it next month. But yeah, creating a subscription business in any industry. So both of Mr. Fly and I, we both have our own businesses. Neither are really subscription businesses. Maybe we can add, I mean, you kind of have a subscription aspect to your business.
Yeah.
But hopefully after reading this, we'll have a better idea of how we can implement subscription style to our businesses. But make sure you hit that like. Thank you again to all the new subscribers. If you made it this far in the video, big up yourself. It means you're a loyal sub. We love it. We'll see you in the next video. Watch whatever reviews on the screen. That book, I guarantee you, will be better than this book that we just read. Support the thing. Peace and love.
Peace.